Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the only global podcast dedicated to cycling style and how you look on the bike. I'm your host, Alex, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Tony and Warren. This is episode number 1, as we decided to call the original episode the prologue. So we retroactively decided to do that. So this is episode number 1. Gentlemen, how are you doing? Tony, you're joining us from Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah, I'm joining us from surprisingly sunny Vancouver, British Columbia, here on a family holiday. Pretty excited to actually ride some mountains. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring my own personal Marinoni, but the friend I'm staying with is providing me with a beautiful tomato red vintage steel Campagnolo equipped Marinoni to ride up the side of some mountains this week. So I will, without being able to have my own equipment, I'm still going to probably look one of the best on the bikes out there for this week.
What kit did you bring?
The kit is Albion. I went with the Albion. I've got the sort of British racing green jersey, solid color, Albion socks, Albion hat. I did, though, because I was worried about transport, bring my old Cask Rapido helmet, which is definitely lower on the scale of quality and style to my Cask Mojito 3 that I just got. And so I'm going to admit that my helmet game's a little bit low.
It's also less expensive, which is bad.
Yeah, of course. It's an entry level item, though protects you just the same is not worth it if you're not paying premium dollars for it. So I apologize for that, guys.
But I'm glad you brought up Albion, because that's a brand we'll certainly be talking about at a later time on the podcast, a brand that we all like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. Well, as our listeners know, and I know it's a bit rich to talk about our listeners since we've only done one podcast so far, but as our listeners know, we typically break this show down into several segments where we cover different releases, new stuff that just came out. So that's what we'll do right now. We'll go into our first segment talking about new releases on the bicycle market. All right, so the first item we're going to talk about this week is the new Palace Cannnondale mountain bike release that just came out this week. Obviously, last year, Palace did a big collaboration with Cannondale and EF, the EF Education First Pro Cycling team, where they dropped a new kit at the Giro with some special helmets that people went nuts about. I think it elicited some very strong reactions. The more traditional people in cycling didn't like it, but a certain faction of cyclists that come from the skateboarding world loved it. Bottom line is everybody had a take about it. Guys, what do you guys think about this new Palace Cannnondale mountain bike?
First off, I want to say why we're talking about mountain bikes. I mean, I think that what Cannondale and Palace did for the Giro and the AF team was incredible. For me personally, it's two kind of important colliding cultural worlds for me with cycling and skateboarding, which is what I grew up with, sort of developed me, helped sort of develop who I was skateboarding. So that was really cool. And I loved it. I love the wildness of it. I love that it put something kind of different into cycling, especially in the pro peloton. This stuff, I don't like mountain biking to begin with. This could be the most beautiful kit that's ever been made, and I'm not interested in mountain biking style. So I don't think it's bad. I think Palace is doing what Palace does, but I'm not a mountain biking guy. Now, I know Warren has spoken many times about when product comes back, when you can actually buy stuff in the cycling world, that he may buy a mountain bike. So I think he might have a bit of a, maybe a different view on it, because it's something he might actually look into wearing.
I mean, it's true. I have considered buying a mountain bike. But I would like to point out that rather than instead of buying a mountain bike, I bought some deep section carbon wheels for my road bike, which I think is important to note, because I wouldn't want our listeners to think that I'm a mountain bike type of guy, because when I look at this collection, it's just, I know it's Palace and it's their thing, but like, it looks like Troy Lee Designs, which I believe is a mountain bike brand, or I'm just making it up. It could be either. And it looks exactly like that. And as we discussed last week, irony, we have thrown irony into the canal. It is not good with cycling. So this collection, I think, has been designed from irony, because looking at it, I don't know what else the inspiration would be.
So I am neither a mountain bike guy nor a washed up ex skateboarder, but when I look at the design of this mountain bike, there's one design element that I note is that it doesn't have dropped seat stays. Now, I don't look at mountain bikes ever, so I don't know if drop seat stays are a thing in mountain bike. But if they're not a thing in mountain bike, I may actually become a mountain bike guy because I hate drop seat stays and this doesn't have them. So from my perspective, that's pretty great.
One thing I also want to add is we're recording this on September 2nd, and at the top of this page for the drop, we got a countdown, just 14 hours until this collection drops, and all the hype beasts are out to buy it. So by the time this hits Spotify and whatnot, this is going to be sold out anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
So our discussion is purely theoretical.
Yeah, it's there's kind of no point in talking about it at this point.
All right, so moving on to the second item that we're going to discuss in this segment, probably more relevant to us as road cyclists, but it's the new Shimano Dura Ace that came out. Now, as we said on our prologue episode, we don't really talk about tech from the point of view of tech. We talk about tech from the point of view of how it looks. So the question we're going to try to answer here is, does the new Dura Ace look better than the old Dura Ace, basically?
And yeah, for me, I don't notice it looking any better, so I'm not buying it. That's kind of it. I mean, I don't really understand the point of releasing an updated, quote unquote, updated cycling product if you haven't made it look better. Oh, like it shifts one split millisecond faster? Like, I don't care.
So I agree with Warren in most parts. And first off, I want to say I think it is a hard fact, a science fact, that Dura Ace style peaked at the Dura Ace 7900 series. That crank was a crank arm and chainring was a work of beauty. And I think every part of that 7900 series is really where Dura Ace should have sort of stayed. I wouldn't say there's any major differences, but one thing I'll give it that I understand is with the new series is that they are creating a wireless cockpit. So they're removing that junction box that you often see even zip tied or tied to people's stems, and having that cleaner look and taking that thing out of the visual fold is an improvement for the Di2 version of Dura Ace. But in terms of Dura Ace itself, it's only gone downhill since the 7900 series.
So the fact that you mentioned that junction box, I actually have Ultegra Di2 on my road bike, and I'd never really thought about that junction box. But now that you bring it up, it's actually really ugly, and I'm not sure I can look at my bike ever again.
I mean, I think you have to just buy the new. I mean, we were just talking about the Dura Ace, but they dropped the Ultegra 12-speed Di2 at the same time, or they're gonna. So, I mean, you could definitely just scrap your whole current Ultegra Di2 setup and just spend the money that you're supposed to spend on a bike and just get the new set. If you want to be cheap out and don't want to get the Dura Ace and be the best.
Alex, what I would actually do if I were you is downgrade to Ultegra mechanical. I think that would be the smart choice.
Fair point. There is one thing I did want to say though about the new Dura Ace is the general move towards more gears, like 12 speed instead of 11, used to be 10, used to be 9. I think we've probably reached the point where it's no longer aesthetically good to have more gears. I'm not sure I enjoy looking at dinner plate cassettes at this point. That's a very mountain bikey type thing. I don't know. I just don't really see the point of an additional gear at this point.
Honestly, I completely agree with you. I think that from an aesthetic point of view, again, things have peaked a while ago. 11, 25, 28, you're getting pretty big, and it was looking a little ridiculous. But kind of that 9-speed 1125, like that was a beautiful thing where it almost looks like the gears were useless. There wasn't enough jump in them to make it worthwhile. But it's the function of it doesn't matter because I understand they're going to do a 34. Which already exists obviously in GRX and stuff, but for the new Dura Ace Ultegra, they're going to have an 1134 cassette option. You can't be a road cyclist riding a dinner plate back there. Like then go buy the Palace Cannondale Collabo kit and ride that on your road bike, because that's essentially what you're doing with your 34 in the back.
Or just become a mountain bike guy.
Yeah.
All right, so shifting gears smoothly, hopefully on segments here, we're moving on to our next segment called the Panache Police. So as you'll recall, the Panache Police is just a mishmash of rants, opinions, debates, etc. And I think Warren, you're bringing something to the table on this week's Panache Police.
Yeah, I am. But at first, I just wanted to comment that I hope that our listeners appreciate Alex's ability to pronounce words properly, especially with that real European flair. I know I appreciate it, and I just hope our listeners do too. Anyway, on to yeah. So this opinion, this take is a little hot, as we said before. Our takes are only hot, but I wanted to talk about Castelli, and it's obviously a brand with a lot of history in the sport. Everyone loves the GABA and various other things. You see, well, in Toronto and everywhere I've ridden in Canada and North America, you see a lot of Castelli, but I think you just can't wear Castelli because of how bad their logo is. Like, I don't know if it's a lobster or a crab. I think it's a scorpion, actually. And I say that as somebody whose very first cycling jersey was Castelli. And I remember I was buying it in the store and I was looking at the logo and I was like, what does a scorpion have to do with cycling? I don't get it. This looks stupid, but it's the only jersey that doesn't look like, like it's a Mountain Equipment Co-op house brand. And yeah, I don't know. I know everyone loves the GABA, but like I don't ride in the rain because then my bike would get dirty and look bad. So I only ride when the weather is perfect. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree, but that's kind of Castelli, the logo. It's and the color red is also just awful.
Now I'm totally torn on this, because I'm not going to deny that the logo is bad, and there's definitely been some times I've been looking at stuff and thinking, especially because a lot of times Castelli does kind of a simple black thing and then they pop that logo there. But you know, it's well known our love for Italy and the Italian heritage, the Castelli, and we've got it's just there's still there's a classicness to it. So I'm not going to say I love it, because you're right, the logo's not a good one and they could rework it. But I'm not going to say it's off the table for me. I think that there's still a lot of opportunity that I would wear Castelli, and it still fits into my aesthetic pretty well.
Yeah, so I'm okay actually with Castelli. I mean, I agree the logo's bad. However, the fit of their jerseys look very pro. Now, I don't own any Castelli, but I see it on the road a lot in Montreal. They've made kits for there's a coffee shop in Montreal that all the pros go to when they do the Grand Prix here in Montreal. And they've had a custom kit made by Castelli, and it looks pretty good for my money. I mean, the sleeves fit almost to the elbow. It's very slim, very pro fitting. I mean, the history of Castelli from 1876, from Veneto, from northern Italy, region that has a great history of cycling. I mean, who am I to kind of dismiss them for a bad logo? I think I'm keeping that brand as a possibility for me anyway.
I hear you on the fit, and like I can't argue the proness of the fit and the style of a lot of the fit. But I mean, to me, what you've basically just said is like, I'm going to drive a BMW with a Kia logo on it.
But I got to come back to the fit and the comment made by that, because it's perfect. Because if you've ever bought a Castelli, anything from Castelli, you always have to size up from what you're supposed to be on anything else in Rafa, Albion, Panorama, whatever. So it just makes you feel like even a worse cyclist, which we're sort of into, right? When brands are basically telling you you're garbage. Like, you think you're a large, guess what? You're an extra large because you're garbage. And if you want to be a large or a medium in my brand, you've got to be the slimmest, fittest cyclist out there. So they're not only a pro fit, they're actually so pro that you can't wear your normal size. I tried to buy a pair of large winter bibs. They did not get over my legs. And that's not because my legs are huge cyclist legs. That's just because you've got to be like a proper fit cyclist for Castelli Fit.
And weren't they making kits for Team Sky a few years back? I think they were, right?
I think they did, and I think they had a lot of good technology with it. And like, they I think they did that Aero skin suit that everyone got mad at, where they had the like stripes on the back or something. Yeah, I mean, I should have probably looked that up, but it's I think they were they've been in Pro Tour.
I wonder if Chris Froome had to go one size up in Castelli.
Oh, he just ate less. Yeah, we agree with you that the logo's awful, but there's enough that's going on. And I mean, in the end, the logo isn't a penis, so it's still got its leg up on a few things.
All right, so agree to disagree on Castelli. Logo is bad, but Tony and I find some redeeming features. Warren, you don't, but that's okay.
No, the logo just redesign it. That's all I'm asking.
Would you get Palace to redesign it?
All right, so moving on to our next segment. Segment's called Into the Canal. So as a reminder, or perhaps for our first-time listeners, what is Into the Canal? Where it's the segment where we take something that we absolutely hate from the world of cycling and we throw it into the Lachine Canal from Montreal, which is where these bad products and brands need to end up. So we're each going to have an item that we're throwing into the canal, starting with you, Tony.
So mine is not something that I think any sort of experienced recreational road cyclist has to deal with. So, I'm sure we'll get listeners who are just looking to us for the expert advice that we provide. And so they're thinking, what's something I can do? What's an inexpensive, easy function to make myself look a little bit more pro? And that is getting the fucking visor off of your helmet. The visor on the helmet is the ultimate sign of someone who has no style, no understanding of how you're supposed to look on the bike. And fortunately for anyone who has it, they're all removable. They become removable. Very easy snap off. All you got to do is snap it off, get on a plane, train, or automobile from wherever you are to Montreal. You stop by Atwater Market for a coffee or something, then you toss it in the canal. And then you don't have to see it. We don't have to see you on the road with it. It's all completely over with. And then your helmet, even if it's an inexpensive helmet, which we don't agree with, but not everybody's smart enough to spend stupid money, then you know what? You look a little bit better. I'm helping you out. You're helping out the visual pleasantness of the cycling community in your city. So the visor helmet on the road bike is off. It's in the canal. Just throw the visor in the canal, please.
You know what's crazy is I think I saw a picture of Lance Armstrong mountain biking somewhere on Instagram, and he actually had the visor on his helmet. And I feel like Lance should know better.
I mean, definitely somebody paid him to wear the visor.
Well, let's do a little bit of business. We got to talk about visors here on this show.
I was just going to add that, a good way of removing the visor is crashing because you're new to cycling. And so you just like smash your face and then the visor's off your helmet and you're good.
Yeah, and then you can, and then you just get rid of that helmet and go buy one that doesn't come with a visor, which means it's a much nicer helmet to begin with.
All right, Warren, you also have an item that you'd like to throw into the canal.
Yeah, and this it kind of relates to Palace in a way, since Palace is a skateboard brand. We all grew up skateboarding and in that kind of world, and a big thing back in the 90s, skateboarding is like putting stickers all over your skateboard, even if you weren't sponsored, you just wanted to show that you were aware of like the cool companies, in a way kind of a precursor to the fact that we now know the cool way to ride a bike. But what is not cool is putting stickers on your bike like you would a skateboard when you were 17. Like unless your dad bought your bike for you at West 49 or Zumiez or one of those like mall skate shops, you should not be putting stickers on your bike. Your bike should be so nice that you would never want to touch it with anything other than like a rag to clean it. Stickers on the bike or any bike frame that has stickers on it, that's going in the canal.
Warren, would you say that the old putting stickers on your skateboard in high school in the late 1990s, that today's equivalent of that in the digital world would be tagging a gazillion brands in your Instagram post of your bike ride or your backyard barbecue or something like that?
I've never thought of it that way, but Yes, I actually think you just kind of blown my mind a bit. I think that is kind of the equivalent. Yeah, and I'm not 17 anymore.
So that goes into the canal as well.
Yes, tagging brands in your Instagram posts is also in the canal.
Tagging brands that aren't sponsoring you. If you're getting some money
Yes.
for it, go ahead. But if you're just doing it to show that you own those brands, well, guess what? A lot of people own those brands, and you're just giving them free stuff, free marketing. Sorry.
And you paid full price for that product that you are tagging the brand with. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Your
Canal.
kit and your bike should speak for themselves. You don't need to tag them.
Yeah. We get a bonus into the canal. I like that. We got the stickers, which I agree with, straight into the canal, and then for all the Instagram cycling influencers out there who aren't actual influencers, are tagging full price products. Stop it. That's into the canal.
That said, if anyone wants to sponsor this podcast, we're open to opportunities. So, cyclingfashionweek@gmail.com.
All right, so my item that I'm gonna throw into the canal, I'm doing the controversial stuff here on this podcast. So you'll recall last week I threw Rafa into the canal. I did add a caveat though that you can come out of the canal, you can redeem yourself if you do something good. We're open minded. We're gonna change our takes if the facts change basically. But this week, I'm going to throw something that's rather important in the world of cycling into the canal, and that would be the Vuelta a España, the third Grand Tour of the pro season. Why am I throwing it into the canal? Well, it could be for the obvious reasons that it's late in the season. We're not as excited to watch the Vuelta as we are watching the Giro or the Tour de France as well. But no, it's not for that, because my reasons for throwing the Vuelta into the canal are purely style based. They're purely aesthetic, because that is what this podcast does. So what are those reasons specifically? Well, first of all, the red jersey of the leader in the Vuelta, I think is really bad. Personally, it's nowhere near as iconic as the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, or it's nowhere near as iconic as the Maglia Rosa in the Giro. I mean, the pink of the Giro jersey even has its own color. Like on my bike, when I chose the colors of my bike, I told Marinoni I want this color. Well, it's called Giro pink. I don't think that there is a Vuelta red color out there. It's nowhere near as iconic. And the other thing is, if you look at the history of the Vuelta, it started as the orange jersey, then it became the gold jersey, then it became the white and red striped jersey, went back to the gold jersey, and in 2010 it became the red jersey. I'm sorry, you can't make something iconic by changing the color every 10 years. Like the Tour de France has the yellow jersey forever, basically. Same thing for the Giro. So that's really bad from the Vuelta standpoint. From a style perspective, that's Canal. The other thing is, some of the style elements that came out at this year's Vuelta are just not good. So the Bahrain jersey that they released there, this sort of like multicolored jersey with the blue on the sleeves, is really Canal. It's not good. We talked about it earlier, but the Palace EF Pro Cycling jersey that was released at the Giro last year was actually good from my perspective. So the stuff that came out of the Vuelta is bad. Primoz Roglic, the current leader of the Vuelta, this might change as we record this, but I doubt it'll change. He was wearing white socks with blue shoes. That's a really bad combination. And I think we'll have an entire section of this show devoted to sock shoe combos at a later time. But let me just break it to you. You cannot wear white socks with dark colored shoes. It doesn't work. The opposite might have worked, but this is no good. And the last reason why I'm going to throw the Vuelta into the Canal is because the invited teams, so obviously on the different Grand Tours, on the Tour de France, you have a bunch of small French teams that get invited. On the Giro, you get a bunch of small Italian teams. And the teams that are invited at the Vuelta don't have iconic kits. Their kits aren't even that Euro overall. There is the Euskadi team, the Basque team that was around in the 90s and early 2000s, and I enjoy seeing them. But some of the smaller Spanish teams like Caja Rural, for example, their kit is really boring. Compare that to the Giro, for example, where you have Bardiani, CSF with that crazy purple and fluorescent green kit. You look at these guys, they're so Euro. It's ridiculous. They look like they're from 1997. when everybody was doping like crazy, which from my perspective is a good thing because it makes the sport crazy and fun to watch. So I just think the Vuelta falls short on several style elements. Maybe try to stick with the red jersey for 100 years and it might become iconic. But for now, I just think the Vuelta is Canal. So I'm throwing the Vuelta into the Canal.
I'm actually that was breaking news to me about the white socks, white shoes, blue socks. I did not see that.
Other way around, Tony. It was blue shoes with white socks.
Blue shoes with white socks.
That's right. Yes.
I did not see that. Considering you can get any shoe and any sock you want as a professional cyclist, within your sponsorship range, that's unacceptable. And I think not only should he not win this tour, anything he's won previously should be taken away. There's got a quick comment on the Bahrain Victorious. That is a charity jersey on steroids. That is the jersey that you would see after, charity rides are great. We're not against, helping people, but the jerseys they give you should be worn only at that charity to support them. And then you throw that right into the canal, the garbage, whatever. And when I looked at this, I just thought this doesn't come in the class that EF Palace Cannnondale kit was, which was sort of a crazy, but a work of art. This is something you feel like, you'd see on a support charity ride that someone would have. So the fact that someone designed that and they were paid to be a designer means that they should be fired. And the fact that Bahrain Victoria saw it and agreed to it without asking for a redesign means that the team should probably fold.
Well, I'm glad you bring up the charity issue because I think it actually is a charity jersey. I think that it's something about diabetes, like fighting diabetes. And I want to be on the record. We are an anti-diabetes podcast here at Cycling Fashion Week. We're very much against diabetes, but we're also in favor of good kits. And this is not a good kit, so it's Canal. All right, so moving on to our next segment. So this is actually the first installment of this segment because we needed to have a submission from a reader or from a listener, for this segment. Segment is called We Rate Your Bike for Free. So basically the way it works is you send us ideally a couple of pictures of your bike at cyclingfashionweek@gmail.com. We'll take a look at those photos. We'll analyze them and we'll rate your bike for free on the show. We'll make sure to post those photos on our Instagram account so all our listeners can chime in the comments. Our Instagram handle is at Cycling Fashion Week. We'll make sure to post those photos there. So this submission comes to us from a listener called Denby. He lives in Connecticut. And Warren, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. So Denby has sent us photos of his looks like Cervelo R3. It's rim brake, which that's a positive, I think, aesthetically. So this is like a fairly bright orange color. And while I would never wear a like safety orange jersey, I kind of into it in terms of this frame color. It pops a little bit. Like if you contrast that with some all black kit, I think that's going to look pretty good. And it also kind of looks like he maybe has some scrapes on the top of his top tube, which the scrapes are bad because you want your frame to look clean, but crashing is maybe arguably pro because scars are cool.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with you on the color. The issue is he will have to go get it repainted to cover the Cervelo logo. Maybe he's a dentist, I don't know, but the color itself is nice, but he's going to have to go for a paint job to make sure he covers the Cervelo logo with something else. Maybe he can just repaint it the same color. That's up to him. My other comment is the saddlebag. Now, many years ago, I would say the saddlebag was a no-go ever. Never, ever, ever. You didn't do a saddlebag. You filled your pockets full of your crap. Recently, I will admit that there are some really well done saddlebags. Albion's done some nice stuff. A local Toronto company, Velocolor, does beautiful, beautiful things with it. Silka ripped off Velocolor, so they actually did an okay one. So the saddlebag is okay, but it's not this one. So I guess if he's getting it repainted, we'll give a shout out to a Toronto fave. We'll go get it repainted at Velo color, and then grab yourself a tool roll or a saddlebag from them, and that's right there. That's a big improvement on the bike. It's only going to cost you whatever $8,000.
This is very affordable. So Denby is from Massachusetts. No, sorry, Connecticut. Okay, so I could tell he was from New England because looking at the color of that bike, it's a very aggressive orange, which I would say is the Halloween special and a nice homage to the Salem witch trials. Their big thing in New England. So I'm not a huge fan of that color. I find it very aggressive overall. There's one more. I do agree with Warren on the rim brake side of things. You definitely can't brake in the rain and you'll risk severe injury. But from a style perspective, I find that rim brakes are very good, and therefore I'm very much in favor of rim brakes. Just a little comment for Denby. The photos you sent, Denby, and thank you so much for doing that, by the way. But the photos you sent are not on the drive side of the bike. That's a very unpro way of taking bike photos. I would say always take your photo showing the drivetrain, so on the drive side and with the chain on the big ring, which I think you've done here, but I can't be 100% sure because the photos aren't drive side, so that's not good from my perspective.
And also the crank should be at 3 and 9 also. And one thing I missed right off the bat, and we've all missed it, which I'm ashamed to say, is he has to immediately slam that stem. It is far too high. It's a good 30 millimeters off the top tube. He absolutely needs to take that back to the bike shop and get the steer tube cut immediately, irreversibly cut, so he can't go back.
Yeah, toss those spacers into the canal.
I mean, that's something we need to mention, that we don't appreciate when you slam your stem, but leave the space above, the steer tube space above, and put the spacers above your stem. That is still, that you might as well just have the stack below. I don't care. You have to cut it down. You have to make sure that the resale values dropped on your bike. You have to make sure that you have no chance of changing that back due to discomfort or injury. Like you have to style is partly about commitment to what you're doing. And so in this case, when you slam a stem, you have to slam it all the way down. You have to cut the steer tube, and you can't go back. So that's Warren's right. I'm ashamed of us as podcast hosts that we didn't see the slam stem to begin with. But for all those out there who have slammed their stem but have left their spacers on top of their stem, no, please make an appointment with your local bike shop and go get it cut, done properly.
Unrelatedly, I have a question on the bottle cages on that bike. I can't tell if they're Arundel bottle cages. If they are, Denby, the Panache police salutes you there, because Arundel bottle cages are probably the only ones I can look at this point. But again, the photos don't make it clear, so I can't quite tell.
I just noticed he has a pump attached to the side of the frame. Now, again, frame pumps on essentially a steel bike or titanium bike that run across your top tube, that is okay. This right here is not acceptable. And I feel like we're ragging on this bike, and there's a lot of really nice things about this bike. This is not it. So there's a lot he can work on, and I think we've been constructive. Like, I think he's going to be able to take this advice and improve this bike for, with the paint job, new saddlebag, cut this, less than 10,000 for sure.
Tony, I think you made a key point here. I think we've been very constructive, and as the global style authority on cycling style, that is what we aim to do with this segment, the Send Us Your Bike for Free. We're going to review it, but we'll also offer some very constructive criticism that is actionable and that you can do something about, basically.
Yeah, so thank you, Denby, for submitting these photos, and we look forward to whoever out there is going to send in their bike next.
All right, so that wraps up this week's show. Thanks to everyone for listening. Don't forget to follow us at Cycling Fashion Week on Instagram. Subscribe on Spotify, subscribe on iTunes. We'll be back with further episodes, and thank you again for listening.